What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and if you are a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, you need to stop whatever you are doing right now because what just dropped out of the mouth of Nick Kypreos is one of the most jaw-dropping, season-altering pieces of Leafs information we have heard in a very long time, and I promise you, by the time we get to the end of this video, your entire perspective on where this franchise is heading is going to shift dramatically. Now, before we get into all of it, if you are new here, smash that subscribe button right now because we cover the Toronto Maple Leafs every single day. And on a day like today, you do not want to be the last person finding out about something this massive. Alright, let's go. So Nick Kypreos, for those of you who somehow still don't know who this man is one of the most well-connected insiders in the entire hockey world. This guy spent years in the NHL, he played the game at the highest level, he bled for this sport, and when he transitioned into media, he built a network of sources that most reporters would spend an entire career trying to replicate. When Nick Kypreos says something, you listen. You do not scroll past it, you do not dismiss it, you sit down, you pay attention, and today, Nick Kypreos said something that has the entire Leafs fan base losing their minds, and rightfully so. Now, let me set the stage for you because context here is everything. The Toronto Maple Leafs are at a genuinely fascinating crossroads right now. This is a franchise that has been chasing a Stanley Cup championship for decades. The pressure in this city is unlike anything in professional sports. Every single summer, every single offseason, every trade deadline, every roster move is analyzed under a microscope, dissected by millions of fans who have been waiting their whole lives to see this team bring a championship back to Maple Leaf Square. And after years of first-round exits, near misses, heartbreaking collapses, and controversial front office decisions, the patience in this city is wearing thin. The fan base is not asking for moral victories anymore. They are demanding real results, and what Kypreos just revealed suggests that the people inside this organization know that, and they may finally be ready to do something about it in a way nobody saw coming. Here is where it gets wild. Kypreos, speaking with a level of confidence and specificity that you only use when you actually know something rather than when you are just speculating, indicated that the Maple Leafs front office has been engaged in internal discussions about a significant structural change. And we are not talking about a minor tweak here. We are not talking about shuffling some depth pieces or adjusting the power play personnel. We are talking about a potential move that could fundamentally reshape how this team is built, who is building it, and whether the current core group of players remains intact heading into what everyone inside the organization understands is a must-win stretch of hockey. And what makes this even more explosive is the timing of it, because this is not coming in the heat of a trade deadline frenzy. This is coming during a period when teams are supposed to be quietly planning, staying out of the headlines, and letting things develop naturally. The fact that information of this magnitude is leaking out right now tells you that things inside the Leafs organization are not as calm and settled as they want you to believe. Let's talk about what this means for the core. Because anytime you hear Kypreos talking about structural changes in Toronto, the first names that immediately come to mind are Auston Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, and John Tavares. These four players are the heart and soul of this franchise, and for years the strategy has been to build around them, support them with the right pieces, put the right coach behind the bench, and trust that the talent will eventually translate into playoff success at the deepest level. And look, the talent has never been the question. Nobody in their right mind is going to sit here and tell you that Auston Matthews is not one of the best players in the world. The guy scores goals at a rate that makes your head spin. Mitch Marner is one of the most creative playmakers in the entire league. Nylander has evolved into a legitimate top-line presence. The talent is real. But talent alone has not been enough, and Nick Kypreos is now suggesting that the people making decisions in Toronto are starting to confront some very uncomfortable truths about what this group can and cannot do together. Now, I want to be very careful here because responsible reporting matters, and we are not going to sit here and recklessly throw out names or make claims that go beyond what has actually been said. But what Kypreos put out there opens up a conversation that the Leafs have been desperately trying to avoid having in public. The conversation about whether this current configuration, with all four of those foundational pieces in place, is actually the best path to a Stanley Cup, or whether bold, painful, franchise-altering moves need to be considered. And when someone with Kypreos' access and track record starts framing things in those terms, you take it seriously. You take it very seriously. Let's also talk about the management side of this, because Kypreos' comments don't exist in a vacuum. There is a larger organizational picture to consider. Brad Treliving came into his role as general manager with a mandate to fix what wasn't working, to bring a different energy, a different approach, and frankly a different kind of accountability to this franchise. And he has made moves. He has tried to reshape the supporting cast, address areas of weakness, and show the hockey world that Toronto is not going to keep running the same play and expecting different results. But the bigger questions, the really difficult ones, have always loomed in the background. And what Kypreos is now suggesting is that those bigger questions may no longer be ones that can be deferred to another offseason. The window has been treated like it's permanently open, but windows in professional hockey do not stay open forever, and everybody inside that organization knows it. Here is another dimension to this that I think is critically underappreciated, and that is the financial reality that the Toronto Maple Leafs are operating within. When you have 4 players of that caliber on your roster, you are paying for it. The salary cap implications of keeping that group together limit what you can do everywhere else on the ice, and if you have been watching Leafs hockey closely over the last several seasons, you know that the margin for error in their depth, particularly in playoff hockey where every line matters, has been painfully thin. Kypreos' reporting, when you read between the lines, seems to be pointing toward a recognition inside the organization that the current financial structure, the way the money is distributed, the way the cap space is being utilized, is creating a ceiling on what this team can realistically achieve. And if you are going to break through that ceiling, something has to give. Something significant. And then there is the coaching angle, which adds yet another layer of complexity to everything Kypreos is hinting at. The relationship between a head coach and his star players is one of the most delicate dynamics in professional sports. And in Toronto, that dynamic has always been under the spotlight in a way it simply isn't anywhere else. Every timeout decision, every line combination, every deployment choice in a playoff game gets picked apart by an incredibly knowledgeable and passionate fan base. When things go wrong in the playoffs, and they have gone wrong in Toronto repeatedly, the coach always becomes part of the conversation. And while Kypreos wasn't directly pointing fingers at the bench in what he revealed, the structural changes he is alluding to would inevitably have implications for the coaching staff and how this team is managed on a day-to-day basis as well. What I find most striking about everything Kypreos dropped, though, is the sense of urgency underneath it all. Because this isn't a story about a team that is calmly and methodically planning for the future. This is a story about a franchise that feels the heat, that understands the moment, and that may be on the verge of making the kind of bold, franchise-defining decision that either accelerates them toward championship contention or triggers a full-scale conversation about what comes next. In Toronto, there is no middle ground. There never has been. You either win the Stanley Cup or the entire summer becomes an autopsy. And Kypreos, as someone who has been in and around this league for his entire adult life, understands that reality better than almost anyone. The fact that he is bringing this information forward right now, with this level of detail and conviction, suggests that whatever is happening inside the Leafs organization is reaching a tipping point. Now, let's talk about what the fanbase reaction has been, because it has been absolutely electric. Social media has been completely taken over by Leafs fans trying to decode exactly what Kypreos meant, what the specific move or moves might be, and whether this is the moment the franchise finally stops playing it safe and swings for the fences. And look, there are 2 very distinct camps forming here. There are the fans who are energized by this, who feel like change is necessary and overdue, who have been waiting for someone inside that building to finally acknowledge that the status quo isn't good enough. And then there are the fans who are terrified that the team is going to break up something before it has fully realized its potential, that they are going to make a panic move and end up worse off than they started. Both reactions are completely understandable, and the truth is, both camps are wrestling with the same fundamental question that has defined Maple Leafs hockey for the better part of the last decade. How do you bridge the gap between a team that is genuinely talented and a team that is genuinely a champion? What makes Nick Kypreos' information so compelling, and so unsettling at the same time, is that it suggests the answer to that question may require the Leafs to go somewhere they have been reluctant to go. It may require them to make a decision that feels wrong in the short term in order to position themselves correctly for what really matters. And anyone who has followed the history of Stanley Cup champions knows that the teams that lift that trophy are rarely the teams that played it safe. They are the teams that made a hard call when a hard call needed to be made. They are the teams that had the courage to blow up a comfortable situation in pursuit of something extraordinary. Whether the Toronto Maple Leafs have that courage, whether Trey Living and the ownership group are prepared to truly shake things up rather than just making cosmetic adjustments, that is the question that Kypreos has just put directly in front of everyone. And here is the thing that should keep every Leafs fan watching very, very closely over the coming days and weeks.